ربي أسأل إتمام ما أؤمل أسماء الشريفة عديدة منيفة قد جاء في القرآن عن الإله اسمان أشهرها محمد.
The most important part of this discussion is a discussion. We're here to answer questions. We are here to discuss. There is no question off the table. There's no question that's taboo. So here I want to open it up. If people that are upstairs that want to come down and ask the questions, feel free. If you're here, raise your hand, ask your question. If you're Muslim, please hold your questions, because you see me at the mosque all the time. You can ask me. We would give preference to those that are not Muslim to be able to use this opportunity to ask their questions. Go for it. All right.
So I really like the idea of what you're saying, because it sounds really nice to like get rid of world hunger and like lower housing prices and stuff, but how would you take into consideration like people's selfishness?
Great question. Great question. Let me repeat the question so everybody can hear, which is, you like the ideas I presented, right? That's good, first step. But what about taking into account people's selfishness? But that's the whole point of being a Muslim. What is a Muslim? Somebody who submits their will to their creator, right? I may want to get drunk. Well, I don't, but I'm saying, right? I may. Like, it's not my thing, throwing up on University Avenue in my own pee. Anyway, so I live close here. I drive by here all the time, trust me, right? So it's not my thing. But let's say I did, but I would say I submit my desires to my creator. My creator knows better. Look, we pray 5 times a day. One of them is early, like 5 a.m. early, right? It's not easy, right? You're tired, you're in bed, it's nice, you've got that REM sleep going, and now it's prayer time. But that's the thing, that's what a Muslim is, who steps on their desires, on their own selfishness, to do what Allah, what our Creator has ordained. And that's why you see many Muslims around the world they're very strict. If you go to Muslim countries, for example, in the month of Ramadan, you will see charity like you wouldn't believe. People will come to a mosque that they don't know anybody, and they will put like 10 grand to feed everybody in the neighborhood. That kind of thing goes on. And there may still be some people who will be selfish. But even if a few, we just gave an example of one man, were to adopt such morals, we could end world hunger. We're not saying every rich person, but even a few, right? So, if you like those ideas, then every one of us at a grassroots level have to start implementing it, right? If me and you accept Islam, and if me and you start bringing these morals into our life, then we begin the change. Don't expect change to come from the top, because the top is too busy being rich and enjoying it, right? It's got to come from the bottom. But it will grow, and as it grows, it happens. In history, if you look up Umar ibn Abdul Aziz or these kinds of people in the Islamic history, you will find in their times there was nobody to take charity. Because when people were living those morals, that kind of hunger had finished. You're always going to have somebody who's less advantaged and more advantaged, but at least you won't have somebody going to bed hungry. At least you won't have people starving around the world. At least you won't have people without homes. Imagine if 2.5% of that wealth that's in San Diego, just San Diego, right? Let's not all San Diego, half of San Diego, gives only 2.5%. We could build houses for all the homeless. We could set up industries with that money, right? Not where a church takes 70% of the money and gives 30% for show. Not all these organizations. I mean, you go to many of these charity organizations and they take the I'm not trying to mention names here, but you know, Red Cross. So you go to these organizations and you look at their operating budget. Their CEOs are making millions of dollars. Millions. That's like me and you are putting $10 for that charity, and he's making $1 million. How much of that money is making it to the poor? In Islam, that money doesn't go to the imam. Like you see in other places where the imam or the priest or the minister or the whatever else gets that money and then, you know, builds their own mansions and all that kind of stuff. That's not in Islam. It doesn't go to the mosque. This goes to the needy, right? Some people are going to stay selfish, but if people like me and you start, then we make a change. Good. Other questions? You ready? All right. She's becoming Muslim today. Next, more questions.
Can I make a quick announcement?
Sure.
We have a sign-in sheet going around. If everyone can scan it on their phone, and then fill out the form. And this is not the sign-in sheet for your classroom. That's another sheet that we're going to be providing to you at the end of the event. So if you could all please fill that out, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
All right, come on, questions. There you go.
Can I just add on to what she said?
Sure.
There was a time at a point where alcohol was halal, meaning like it was allowed to drink, but then God seen that people weren't praying, people were messing up, people were being lazy, drunk, stuff like that, and they weren't being responsible. So there's a reason why it's haram now. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's just like something for you to know. I know he's talking about like selfishness. It's there for, God put this rule in place, you know, for our safety, you know, for our concerns. If alcohol was allowed, you see a lot of people not going to jobs. You see a lot of people, you know what I mean, messing up. So that's the reason why it's banned.
Nice. All right, go ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's good. Go ahead.
Could that not just be like a personal thing though?
Sure.
Like
So
you should have your own self-control if that's like something that's
excellent.
to you, then you should be able to like balance both.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Have you ever met a drunk?
No, not really.
Really? Never? And you go to state? Come on. Let's just be honest here, right? I'm just playing. All right. If you ever, I know you don't. You're study all night, right? I got you, right? Is your mom here? No, I'm just kidding. No. So I have met drunks in my life. I have met people who alcohol has ruined their life. And if you ever ask any of them, do you have a problem? Be like, no, I'm fine. Give me my keys, right? Nobody thinks they have a problem, right? If you look at a person who's hooked on heroin, or if you look at somebody who's a kleptomaniac, or somebody who robs banks, and you ask them, why don't you just control yourself, right? The problem gets to be, in society, we make laws to prevent ourselves from our own selves, right? Meaning, why do we have laws? Like for example, when you bring your car, why do you lock it? Right? It should be that you just leave your car open and everybody's honest enough that they don't touch your car. But the reality is some people can't, right? So you have to put in those laws, right? So if you look at alcohol, if you look at the benefits of alcohol, right? Health benefits they will be nothing compared to the harms that come out of it. Right? If you look at it as a society, if you just look at it as an individual, then everybody thinks I can control it. Right? Everybody who's ever got into a car and hit somebody because they were drunk thought they could drive home. Right? But our Creator knows better. Our Creator knows better what's good and what's bad. So that's why there are things that are there as tests for us in this world, but we're not supposed to go to them. And we see in society that if we were to take that option away, that if we were to say, look, alcohol is not acceptable, then 95,000 more people would be alive, right? What's the down of it? You don't get to throw up on yourself on Saturdays, right? I mean, there are things you can do for fun, there are things that you can go and enjoy, but things that cause 100,000 deaths, people talk about gun violence and things like this, but look at this. Look at these stats, right? I know prohibition didn't work out in the US, and I understand why. Because it was a government-run program. It was not a spiritual program. It was not a religious program. But if you look in many Muslim countries, and you just look at the statistics of drunk driving, and you can Google it yourself, you will find they're minuscule. Why? Because alcohol is not accepted as a society, as a religious value. So imagine in our society if we had that. No doubt everybody should be able to control themselves, but we know humans can't. Right? More questions? Come on, hit me with some hard stuff, man. You guys are easy. Yes, sir.
I just want to get a statement. I think it was 2 days ago, or 3 days ago, they were on campus, and they were handing out free condoms to the students.
Are you trying to make an advertisement or a statement? Gotcha. Any questions? If you're not Muslim, we're going to give you preference here because this is your chance. Ask anything you saw on Fox or something. Hopefully you don't watch Fox. Go ahead. You watch Fox, huh? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Do you think that the United States has kind of been like Western chauvinistic when it comes to how they portray Muslims, especially
yes.
like the Eastern Hemisphere? And if so, how do you think we can change, like, as people who in these countries like that better?
Great question. And that I should have paid you for that one. Think through this, right? First thing, not just against Muslims. I think in the West, and like in other countries or other geographical locations, we have a bias. And that bias comes out in our media, it comes out in our speech, it comes out in our jokes, it comes out in many forms. No doubt, people look at Islam through that bias. Right? I was in Saudi Arabia recently, and I was talking to somebody on a flight back from another country, and they were like, "Where were you at?" I was like, "Oh, Saudi Arabia." "Oh, wow, how was it?" I was like, "It was great, nice, it was very nice." "Oh, was it really hot?" "I don't know, it was all AC." "They have ACs?" "Yes, they have ACs." "Wow, so did you live like the desert?" Like, no, I didn't live in a desert. I was in a 5-star hotel. But anyway, right? So the point there being, people have this misconception and I'll tell you this, just to make it that it's not about Islam and Muslims only. Myself, growing up here, I had a very negative image of Cuba growing up. I thought, going to school here, that Cuba was like dead and they had no doctors and no hospitals and no schools and people were just starving in the streets and just begging, because that's what we were fed. When I watched that documentary, Sicko, opened my mind. I was like, we have doctors? Wow! That's crazy, right? And come to find out, per capita, they have the most doctors in the world, right? But we would not have known that. If we look at the idea of what China is like, or what Hong Kong is like, or what South Africa is like, or what Dubai is like, or what Russia is like, we have these preconceived ideas, and they're usually a biased idea. If you look at the idea of Muslim women, it's always this idea they're being oppressed and they're being forced. Well, you have a lot of Muslim women here. I don't know. Any of you guys being oppressed? Just raise your hand if somebody forced you, put a gun to your head. No? You sure? All right, good. Right? So, you see, and this is the solution. The solution is we need to talk. We need to have events like this. We need to have people come together, ask open, honest questions, and get to know each other. Get to know reality from Hollywood. I mean, you know, the funny thing is, if you thought about Germans, I'm going to just take something wild, right? Just from Hollywood, you would have a very negative image of Germans. Like, till today, every bad guy in a Marvel movie is going to be a German, right? Some kind of Nazi spin-off, Hydra or whatever, right? So think about that, right? We're being fed these negative images of a country today that has nothing like that, right? Communist Russia is always given this really, really evil, no right. And again, some of that may be based on true, but most of it's not, right? If we think, I'll tell you funny, I was in Mexico City many, many years ago. And Mexico City is one of the biggest cities in the world. It's amazing. I know a guy who lives out there, he owns a company. He takes a helicopter to work. That's how well off he is, right? And we were talking to a guy, and he was like, Mexico City, what a dump. I was like, have you ever been there? No, but I can imagine. No, you can't imagine. Actually, it's a very beautiful city, right? So these negative stereotypes are pumped through the media, through, Fox News is basically a medium for just getting hype off such things, right? And you never see Muslims like myself on Fox News. They never invite us, right? They're going to invite somebody who's Islamophobe, and they're going to ask this guy who hates Islam, so what do you think about Islam? Like, why are you asking him, right? Why don't you invite us? No. But then we as people have to break that at a grassroots level, at an individual level. We have to start communicating. We have to break those stereotypes. We have to, as a society, if we want to survive. Otherwise, if you look at what happened in Nazi Germany in that time, it was the same kind of a thing. When you make a people into scapegoats and villains, many evil things can be done by the leadership of that country under that. And if you haven't seen it in history, read up your books, right? And that's why it's so important. The solution is we have these kinds of events. We have these kinds of conversations. All right, that was good. And come on, harder. Let's hit this. Questions? I know you were shy, but ask away. Something you just thought, if I ever meet a Muslim, I'm going to ask them this. No? Come on. Anyway. Yes?
What would your response be to people having a self-perception of Islam?
Can you speak up a little bit?
What would your response be
Say this
to
out
somebody
loud.
having a current perception of Islam based on just right?
Based on?
Their friends.
Their friends.
They might not be practicing it their ways.
Great question. Sometimes you see a negative image of Islam, or not, maybe just an incorrect image of Islam because of the shortcomings of Muslims, meaning some Muslims that may not practice Islam, and people see them and assume that that's Islam, whether it is through them being violent or being drunks or whatever else that people go through their own personal struggles. Our response would be is to judge a religion upon its religious texts, not upon the shortcomings of its followers. If we were to judge Christianity based on Hitler, for example, we'd have a very negative image if we look at the 2 world wars and all that stuff, but we don't. We want to always look at the text. We want to look at what does the religion actually preach. If we go hang out with KKK guys burning crosses, well, I'm not going to judge all Christians based on that, right? If we were to judge any religion by the actions of their people, well, there are good Muslims and bad Muslims, good Christians and bad Christians, good Jews and bad Jews, good atheists and bad atheists, good Hindus and bad Hindus, and so on and so on, right? So we always encourage people to read about the religion themselves, not just, look at somebody. People have their own personal struggles. We don't want to judge a religion based upon that. More questions? Come on, I know you guys got some, man. Go ahead. Here, and then we'll go back to after that. Go ahead, you were first. Go ahead.
I had a question about zakat.
Okay.
So, we were talking about how if everyone had the 5% payment, would have less hunger and...
We would diminish it. World hunger would end according to the UN.
So I was curious, in countries like Saudi Arabia, that this law is in Islam, I was wondering if they don't have hunger or if they have...
Great question. Countries like Saudi Arabia, do they still have poverty and hunger? I'm not sure. I don't know the stats because I don't live there. But if the people there do pay their zakat as they should, then they definitely have the resources to end hunger in their countries at least, right? But if we're talking about a global solution, then we can't talk about just one country, because none of those countries have the type of wealth that we see in the West today, right? I mean, we may have a rich king or a prince or somebody here and there, but if you take Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and just a few of the billionaires that we have today, they'll take maybe, good top % of the wealth of the world, right? If those wealthy people, no matter what country they're in, were to follow those Islamic laws, then it would end world hunger, right? Which people amongst the Muslims do pay zakat, don't pay zakat, I don't know, right? But this study that we have is about one individual, and according to the United Nations, this is not something that I just came up with, said it would end world hunger, right? So imagine if more people than just one, more of the billionaires of the world would actually follow the Islamic idea of zakat, we can guarantee, they're saying about just one person, we can guarantee at least world hunger would finish, right? And then we would use that money for programs to try to empower and develop other people in other countries, other communities. And it's not like the world became the way it is just the way it is. No, European powers went and colonized many parts of Africa and Asia and so on. You can see the British were everywhere. From that one little island, man, they controlled everything, right? And they didn't just go there and develop, right? They stole the resources, they killed scholars and so on. Read your history. And that's why we have situations. They caused problems like the Kashmir issue or the Iraq issue and so on, right? Even today, we as a country, we invaded Iraq, right? Anybody still remember that, or we all forgot that? That's all out of your mind, right? Why? What had Iraq done to us? Was Iraq behind 9/11? I think it's pretty much well known to everybody. No, they were not. They had nothing to do with it, right? Were they attacking the US? No, they were not. We invaded a country, we took out their army, we took out their police force, we put the country in chaos. Imagine somebody comes to San Diego and the police is now gone, there's no military, there's looting, there's rioting, and then we just leave it, right? With those kinds of problems. And then we're like, I wonder why they're... Iraq had the highest literacy rate in the Middle East. Google it, look it up, right? Minorities had rights. The foreign minister of Iraq, Tariq Aziz, was a Christian, right? Women, education, all that was going good. Why did we invade? If they had a president they didn't like or was bad, that's their issue. Imagine we had Trump and Biden. I don't care which spectrum you're on, or the right wing or left wing, one of those is going to make you upset. Does that mean people should invade the US? Right? When we cause these problems, then we should be a part of the solution as well. I went further than you asked. All right, go ahead.
Is there any other economic solutions that they have for economic balance?
So Islam has a whole system of Islamic economics, right? So one of the issues that we talked about is interest-free loans. So you would no longer have these bankers trying to, sell submerged mortgages and all these kinds of things to try to make fake bubbles and all that. You would also have zakat, which would not just, it's not just that it would help the poor, but it infuses wealth into the community, into the economics of it, right? Meaning, if people just store wealth, the economy crumbles, right? When people have to spend, because they have to pay zakat anyway, that when he has to spend, the poor have to then go buy food and products and things, the economy grows. Right? So if you look at an economic model, and many professors out of Norway and others have done economic models like calculations, and they've said the world economy would be steady and would have growth and not these bubbles if such laws were brought. Why? Because these are not laws that some economists in some room came up with. These are laws that are for divine nature. Our Creator knows us better than us. He knows what's good and bad for us, right? So when we're told to pray 5 times, or not drink alcohol, or don't eat pork, or don't fornicate, and do everything this in the right way, and so on, it's because it benefits us. It's because us as humans, this is our user manual. This is what tells us how to function correctly. All right, good question. What more? Anyway. Come on. Go ahead.
Can you explain to them about our education system?
Excellent. So if you look at the Islamic education system, one of the things that we forget is the emphasis Islam brought on education. No doubt the first university and the first, like even the word bachelor's, like a bachelor's degree. I was looking at some of the linguistic professors talking about the root words here. And some of them, they have the idea that actually came from Arabic, which was that you could give them a permission to rawaya, I need to report on my behalf. Right? That I give you now my permission and an ijazah to report on my behalf. So from the riwayah, from that idea, came the word for bachelors and so on, right? And that brought an aspect of education. That education in the Muslim world was free. There was no cost for education. Imagine if you had no tuition, right? In the Muslim concept, if you look at the earlier Islamic universities, they were all free. The people had a right. And if you look at the writings of scholars like Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim and others, they talk about the emphasis on learning and education for the Muslim community and how that's a right for men and women, right? But today, we've made education into a business. And that's why, certain universities charge a lot more money than others, and you got those connects, and if you've been to this university, all this kind of a thing would be done away with. All right, more questions? Anybody? Go ahead.
Hey, Shaykh, with all the religions out there, why is Islam the right path?
Excellent. When we talk about different religions and why something is right from wrong, we always have to be objective, right? First and foremost, we have to look at what is the preserved message. Meaning, if all of us here had an idea, and it was a really great idea, but by the time it got to somebody, that idea goes through so many changes that it is no longer the original idea, then that's done to begin with, right? If we look at the Old Testament and how most of it was lost after Babylon, and then the Old Testament was rewritten through songs and traditions and so on, every serious professor of the Old Testament will tell you that the original writings, if they existed in the time of Moses, are not those that we have today. Right? If you look at the New Testament, most of the old writings that we have, the earliest manuscripts are in Koine Greek, which was not the language of Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him. Most of those are from anonymous authors, meaning they're actually not written by the disciples or anybody else that was at the same time period, 70, 100 years later. Right? So that means none of that is preserved. Right? But Islam, the first unique thing is that we have the original message in the original language, memorized letter by letter, word by word. Right? We could, if those that have memorized the entire Quran, could sit here with a piece of paper and write the whole thing out. Right? And I know people in North Africa, for example, that memorize the Quran. They write out the Quran from memory twice without mistakes, and that's when they're considered to be memorized of the Quran. And that has been going on since the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Meaning, in the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, there were those that memorized the entire Quran, word by word, letter by letter, sound by sound. Even the pronunciation, the qira'at, even the pronunciation and the variation in how to pronounce, we have sanad, we have a chain all the way to the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Even the hadith, the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, are also checked through mustalah al-hadith, the whole science. So the first thing is it's preserved. We have manuscripts that can be carbon dated, like the Birmingham Quran that has a part of the Quran, the Sana'a Quran, who has a complete manuscript, and so on, to the lifetime and to the dates of the Prophet Muhammad and his first generation. Right? And those, you can read them as we read today. Right? They are written without harakat, no fatha, dhamma, kasra, and all of that, because that was not needed at the time. But those can be read today. So this is the first thing, the preservation. Right? Secondly, we look at the core message. Right? What is the core message of Islam? There is one creator. It's not a man, it's not a woman, doesn't have children, doesn't have roommates, doesn't have cousins or baby mamas or any of that kind of stuff, right? One great creator that created the universe, that created the world, that created me and you, that created all of us for a purpose. And none of us are going to be forgiven just because somebody else died for our sins or because some monkey somewhere did something. No, you have to be responsible for your deeds. I mean, that's such a beautiful message. You earn the mercy of God by trying, by being good to people, by giving charity, by helping others. And when you are judged, you'll be judged for yourself, not for anybody else. You're not born with sin, none of those kinds of things. But this is evidently the truth. More questions? Non-Muslims, come on. Hit me some hard stuff, man. You guys are too easy. Go ahead.
I actually eat pork.
We do not eat pork because first and foremost, Allah forbid it in the Quran. Right? And this is something that was forbidden for Christians and Jews as well. But today, a lot of them do. So there's two aspects of that. First is our Creator knows us better. He knows what's good for us. He knows what's bad for us, right? If you made something, let's say, what's your major?
Kinesiology.
Huh?
Kinesiology.
All right, cool. Let's say you were an engineering major, right? Just for my example, all right? Kinesiology, I don't know what that is even, right? All right. Let's say you were an engineering major, right? And you invented a new type of phone, better than an iPhone, better than Samsung, better than OnePlus, better than all of that, right? You invented a phone that cooks for you and drives you and all of that. It's really cool, right? Amazing new phone, but it's a new technology. Nobody has seen it, nobody knows how it works. You came up with it, right? Would you just take it and be like, hey, here you go, do whatever you want, put it in a microwave, who cares? No, you as the manufacturer, as the designer, as the one who developed it, will say, okay, look, this is how you use it. And I'm gonna send a manual. Whoever buys, like when you buy an iPhone or a Samsung, it comes with a manual, right? How much, like, I don't know if you remember the old iPhones, if it got close to water, it would fall apart, right? So they would have warnings, don't get it close to water, like don't do this, don't put it in a microwave, don't do this, because as the designer and manufacturer, you know how best to use the device you design. Our Creator, Allah, our God, the one who created, designed us, the one who made us, He knows best how we should live. So pork is something that He knows best that we shouldn't eat, right? And this is in the Old Testament. You will find it in the Bible. In the New Testament, there are no dietary laws, but as we find that Jesus said, I didn't come to do away with the law, right? So we're not talking about Paul or other people afterwards, but from Jesus' own lifestyle, pork was forbidden for Christians or who followed Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him. Just in the same tradition, Muslims are also not allowed to eat pork. That's why. But now if you want to talk about the wisdoms of it, then I can tell you the wisdom of it. It's really bad for you. If you've ever taken a health class here, I took a health class during my master's program, and we put meat out, like chicken, beef, just as an experiment. The first one to rot before anything and have the worst maggots and things was pork. There's a case in San Diego, a gentleman got a maggot in his brain from eating a pork taco. If you look at any study done, the worst meat is pork. Right? No matter how much you cook it and think it's still bad for you, right? So the Creator knew better that this meat's not good for us, so He made it forbidden for us. But if you want some turkey bacon, I can hook you up. Questions? Go ahead, man. It's going to be my night with you tonight. Just go keep going with the questions. Go ahead.
This is being a sociology class too, so
Excellent, excellent. We want questions, so that's great.
So, since he says it's bad for you, could not say the same thing about like different foods that are also bad for you?
Sure. So in Islam you have two things, right? One is what we call nas, like a clear, evident verse from the Quran or saying of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. When you have that, that's the religion. Meaning we cannot make up our own rulings, right? Because then what happens, everything becomes subjective, right? Somebody could be like sugar is bad for you, right? Somebody could be like caffeine's bad for you. Somebody could be like rice, keto, you got the diet, now you can't eat bread anymore, right? So those things will change. Like when I was growing up, there was a time when people were like, don't eat eggs, they're gonna kill you. Then they were like, you must eat eggs. And they were like, no, don't eat eggs again. Like, so those kinds of things kind of go through people's own choices. So in that case, if you feel that rice is not good for you, don't eat it. That's your choice, no problem, right? But you cannot make a religious ruling without evidence, because it's not our religion, right? What you see in other religions is people make up rulings, right? Like if you look at, I'll give you an example, Christmas. Right? Is Christmas in the Bible? Anybody?
I believe it is Jesus' birthday.
You believe wrong. It is not Jesus' birthday. That's what they tell you, and they tell you wrong. And this is the great thing that we're having this conversation. Look it up when you go home, right? No indication at all that Jesus was born in December, the 25th. Most biblical scholars will tell you, due to passages, that he was born in the summer. Even that's not evident, but there is no doubt that 25th of December had nothing to do with Jesus, right? This was a pagan festival that was brought into Christianity. Santa Claus, what does that have to do with Jesus? Reindeer? Trees?
That's called marketing.
Marketing, excellent. How many marketing majors do we have, right? So that is marketing. That is people bringing their ideas into religion, right? Why does a pope wear red shoes? Why do they put certain type of smoke out? This is all made up, right? This is all people's ideas. Why do people, I was in Israel, in Quds, Palestine, and I saw some of the Hasidic Orthodox Jews, and they were wearing a very thick cap, and I like to have conversations. I'm a fun guy to talk to, so I told them, hey, is that the way Moses dressed or David dressed? And they're like, no, there was a rabbi that was in Europe, and so basically that dress, that outfit is all developed from Europe, not even in the Middle East, and had nothing to do with Moses or David, but different rabbis and different kings that ordered, foxtails and all this stuff. So this is all made up. Islam, we don't believe in that. We believe this is the religion of Allah. The way He revealed it, we keep it. Whatever He made halal, permissible, we say it's halal. Whatever He forbid, we say it's forbidden. Personal choices are your choices. You don't want to drink caffeine? Don't drink it. You don't want to drink sugar? Don't drink it. But to say that it's forbidden, you would have to have evidence. Cool? All right, sorry, I think we had one here. No? All right, let me take here, and then we'll go to the back.
Why do you believe God allows bad things to happen?
Ooh, that's a good one. See, there you go. Let's get some hard ones going, right? Why do we believe God allows bad things to happen? First and foremost, you have to understand what is the purpose of this life. Right? This life is not forever. This life is not it. Right? We all know that when we think, even non-Muslims, I'm not talking about Islam, right? We always have this idea of an afterlife. That's something we call in Islam fitrah. Like in your natural state, you have this idea that there's going to be something after death. And Islam answers that for us, right? That this life is a temporary abode, right? We were souls before this. It's called alam al-arwah, this time that we were just souls, no bodies, right? And from the hadith, from the saying of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, we would meet each other as souls. And that's why sometimes you meet somebody and immediately you kick it off with them. Like you like the way they're, you like them right away. And sometimes you meet someone and you're like, nah, I'm good, right? So this is something answered by Islam. After that, yeah, you got me, huh? She's like, yeah, I know, right? Right? So after that time, we came into a different life, which was the womb of the mother, right? This is a different life. You didn't breathe air, you didn't see anybody else. Imagine the child in the belly of the mother, Imagine if you tell them, you know what, someday you're going to be sitting in a classroom with like 100 people and you're going to be wearing masks and you're like, what the hell's a mask, right? They're going to be like, you're going to be chewing food. Like, chew food? What? I got this little tube, it feeds me. I don't need any of that, right? Right? And then you die from that life, meaning you leave that state of existence. You come to this world, everything changes. You start breathing air, no longer liquids in your lung. Now if you get liquids, you die, right? Then everything changes. Your lifespan changes, your reality changes, your interactions change. This is another life, right? After this life, you will die from this life and you will go to the next, which is the grave. That's another, it's called barzakh. It's another existence. Things will change. You will not eat like the way you eat, but you will exist. And then there'll be the hereafter, the life when you're raised after that, and that's the permanent one. So this whole explanation was to say that this life is temporary, and this life is a test. So some people get hardships in lives to remind them that this life is a test. Some people, the hardship, it cleanses them, it purifies them. Right? Imagine if there was no hardship in life, nobody ever got sick, people would forget to pray, people would forget their purpose, people would forget, you know, when I get sick, I think about others that are sick. When I get a toothache, I feel sympathy and empathy for those that have toothaches, right? So if you never had hardships, you would just be lost. And you would think this life is forever, and it's not. But the hereafter is forever, and those that make it to the paradise, right? Those who accept their Creator and worship Him and do what's right and try their best, they will have a life that will have no pain and no suffering. But this world is a test, so you're going to have pain and suffering. Just like the tests you take here in school, they're pretty painful and suffering, right? Okay, in the back. Yes. Go ahead. I'm sorry? Oh man, you want a list? All right. So, to worship anything other than Allah. That's the first and foremost. We don't worship people. We don't worship the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. We don't worship saints. We don't worship idols. We don't worship graves. We don't worship monkeys. We don't worship apes. We don't worship cows. We don't worship blue guys or any of that kind of stuff. We don't worship any other prophet. Worshipping anything except the one Creator is forbidden. That's the first and foremost. After that, to kill people unjustly. If you just go and harm somebody and kill somebody, that's forbidden. To steal is forbidden. To lie, forbidden. To backbite, forbidden. To drink alcohol, forbidden. To eat pork, forbidden. To, I don't know, is that a long enough list or you want more? All right, I can keep going, right? Everything that our Creator deemed as not fit for us is going to be forbidden. To cheat on your spouse, forbidden. To take bribes, forbidden. All of that is for our own benefit. In the end, none of that harms the Creator. If we did everything forbidden, it wouldn't matter to the Creator's greatness. He would still be great. But it harms us as people in society. So for a clean, good lifestyle, those things have been forbidden for us. Go ahead.
So in Islam, there's the idea of like a predestination. So
ooh, good one.
What's kind of the incentive to be a good person? Or
excellent. This is the kind of questions I needed to challenge me a little bit. Come on, right? Show your SDSU academic skills. All right. So the question: if everything is predetermined with the concept we call qadr, then what's the incentive to do good, right? In Islam, we have a belief that our Creator knows what we're going to do. But that does not mean we are forced to do it. Right? These are two different things. It is not like you're a robot and your program has already been programmed and you're going to sin because it's programmed to sin. No, me and you have choices. In things that we have choices, we will be questioned and we will be rewarded or punished. In some things, we have no choice. I had no choice what color eyes I would have. You have no choice, I'm assuming, unless you got an application before birth or anything, right? So you will not be rewarded or punished for that. Your race, your physical abilities, if you're born with any challenges, you will not be rewarded or punished. If just because you're an Arab or Pakistani or Jew or this is no different than anybody else in Islam. Everybody's equal. Anything, whether it rains or not, whether those things we have no choice. When you were born, when you're going to die, you have no choice. You will not be punished or rewarded for it. But in things you have a choice, you will make that choice. Predetermination does not mean it forces you. Right? Like tonight, you could be out drinking, partying, doing drugs or whatever else, but you're here listening to this really cool guy speak, right? Great choice. But, right, now, in that, you have that choice. So then Allah will, for example, make this a means of guidance for you, right? This will be something good for you. If you make a choice to do something else, you will be punished, you will be asked, you will be questioned. If we kill somebody, we will be asked on the Day of Judgment, why did you kill them? Right? You can't just be like, oh, it's destiny. No, you made your choice, you will be held accountable, right? Now that is from the greatness of our Creator, that He knows what we will do, but He does not force it upon us. Cool?
Secondary question.
Go for it.
My grandfather's Muslim, but I've never really gotten in there, and I always kind of...
Well, there's no time like the present.
The way that I always thought about it is, not that I always thought about it like as I was against it, I was never against it, but I just...
Cool.
Like, why do I have to do good for somebody else when I can just do good for myself?
Great question. As a Muslim, you're not being good for somebody else. You are being good because your Creator has ordained for you to do certain things. That is for yourself. In the end, if you do everything bad, it won't harm anybody but yourself. And if you do everything good, it will not benefit anybody but yourself, right? But then the question may come, why can't I just choose what's right and wrong? Why do I have to follow what the Quran says, what the Prophet says, so on and so on? Peace and blessings be upon him. So here comes the question, right? How do you know what's good then? Right? If, for example, somebody's an atheist and they decide that we're going to make our own moral code, right? Okay, is death penalty moral? Right? Somebody may say yes, somebody may say no, right? There are states like Texas that fries you up, right? And there are other states that have banned it, right? Because immoral. So now who will make that judgment? Right? Is abortion moral or not? We have a great debate in this country, right? Is euthanasia moral or not, right? Is killing off the elderly moral or not? And as crazy as that sounds, there are people in America that are like, they're elderly. They don't do anything for us, right? And that's, again, is slavery moral or not? There was a time in this country that the founder of this country had slaves. George Washington, look it up, right? Look up your dollar bill. Who's on it? Slave owners, right? But if I say that, people say, oh, you can't judge him because at that time, okay, so did morality change? At that time, slavery was moral and now it's not? Would they look at us and the LGBT rights that we have and George Washington think of us being immoral and we look back at them with slavery and say they're immoral? Where's morality then? Right? That is why as Muslims, we don't make our own morality. We follow what our Creator has said. And that is why we do good to benefit ourselves, but in good and wrong, right and wrong, we follow the moral code that our divine Creator has divinely revealed. Otherwise, morality is subjective. There is no morality. Everybody will be moral according to some standard and immoral. The worst, I'm sure Hitler thought he was moral. I hope most of you don't think that, right? Don't know. But there were many people that followed him. Right? It wasn't like he was just one guy. Go ahead.
Can I go one more?
Go for it. You can get it all night long, man. Go for it. We got you.
So then, talking about those code of rules, to what extent can you still kind of follow Sharia?
Sure.
Or in the modern world, how far?
100% you can follow it.
Okay.
Yeah. The Sharia is not what you see on TV. It's not some dude with a camel and a sword in his hand. I'm cutting off hands, This is as she was saying, this is a Hollywood version of Sharia. Sharia is everyday life. And the prayers are part of Sharia. It's the laws that Allah has revealed. Fasting, zakat, this is part of Sharia. It's not some scary, weird, backwards thing. No. The Quran has been revealed to be a guidance till the Day of Judgment. I can practice my religion as a Muslim today, just like they could 1,000 years ago. There's no difference, right? Things may be different in the sense, for example, I travel on a plane and they may have camels or horses or so on, but the prayer is the prayer. We still face the same qibla, the same direction. We still, Fajr is 2 and Dhuhr is 4 and fasting in Ramadan. All of that is the same, right? That is such a beautiful way of life that it is something that can be 100% followed till the Day of Judgment. No part of the Sharia is time expires, right? So that's beautiful. Like if you look at the idea of priesthood where you can't get married, well, I mean, only a certain amount of people, if you don't have people getting married, humanity is not going to grow, right? But in Islam, even scholars get married, right? It's such a model of life that you can implement it 100% and so have society flourish till the day of judgment. Cool. Go for it, and then we'll get you. Go ahead. Okay. It's okay. You can ask. I want you guys to ask. I'm going to be here as late as you guys need me. This is what I'm here for.
I have 2 questions.
Go for it. You get one free, and I'm going to charge you for the second. No, I'm just kidding.
So the first one is, like, for example, Catholics, if we make a sin, we have someone to forgive us.
Sure. The priest, you're saying? Okay.
So, do you guys have that as well?
We do not. So the idea of confession is not something we find in Islam, right? In Islam, our Creator forgives us directly. I don't need to go to a guy and be like, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I killed 3 people last night, and this, and then he's like, say 300 Hail Marys and pay or whatever, right? We don't have that. Instead, if you sin, you directly have a conversation with your Creator. You say, you're my Creator, you're my Allah, you're my Rabb, you're my Lord. I sinned, I shouldn't have done it, forgive me. And Allah forgives you directly. Doesn't have to kill anybody. You don't have to go tell anybody else. Secret between you and your Creator. That's in Islam. Second question.
Yeah, answer the second question.
Oh, come on. That was. If you want another one, I'll give you another one. All right, just think about it. All right, go ahead.
What is your religion's views on gay rights?
Oh, I was waiting for this one. So in Islam, we believe that homosexuality is not a moral lifestyle. Right? We do not believe this is something that is naturally ordained by our Creator. As in other religions, if you look in the New Testament, you can look in Romans. If you look in the Old Testament, look in Leviticus, and so on. Some religions have started to change that. Like they've decided to change whatever's in their actual books and their ideas and so on. We do not believe in that. We believe that our Creator created us with a natural method. How do we have children? A very basic, natural method. Whether you're a Muslim or not, you would say, men, women, children, right? Men, no children. Women, no children. Not a natural method. If somebody has those inclinations, that is something that is their own inclinations, but that is not the method that the Creator has created. So in Islam, homosexuality would be forbidden. Go ahead.
Okay, but the Creator created them to be that way.
Sure.
So
let's ask that question, right?
Would that not also be just their natural way?
Sure. Let's talk about it. So let's say somebody has a bad temper. Let's say I have a bad temper, right? Does that mean that because I naturally have a bad temper, it's okay for me to cuss people out or something like this, right? People have different inclinations. Some people like to fornicate. Forget about homosexuality. Let's say somebody just likes, just doesn't not satisfied with a spouse. They want to have different people every night, right? That may be something but that's their test, right? But that is not the natural method that humanity was created for, right? Adam and Eve. Right? So it's not Adam and Steve, right? So if you look at that natural method, it's man and woman. If anybody has any kind of personal leanings that are against that natural method, that is their issue to work out with themselves, right? If somebody's attracted to an animal, for example, that's maybe natural. I mean, it could happen. But that doesn't mean that just because they have that inclination that they should act upon it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my question builds upon this topic of homosexuality.
Go for it. Build on.
So, based on, you're Sunni Muslim, right?
I'm Muslim, alhamdulillah, from the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, yes.
So, according to Sunni Islam, the great scholars like Ibn Taymiyyah and Bas,
sure.
What is the punishment of someone that does homosexual act?
So, first thing, according to Sunni Islam, seems to indicate that there is more than one Islam, right? Which there isn't, right? The Islam is based on the Quran and the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So whether you're whatever name you want to give yourself, there's only one Islam, right?
So, other sects are not even Muslims. Yeah?
Like what?
Shia, for example.
What's the Shia?
Sect of Islam.
No. What's the difference between Sunni and Shia?
Well, several different
Right?
like,
Do they follow the Quran?
yeah, but different interpretations, of course, you know, about like Khilafah and stuff like that.
But Khilafah is...
You know the history.
Sure, I do know the history. But the point being that if somebody has a political disagreement, that's not a religious disagreement, right? But if somebody worships other than Allah, like somebody says, oh, Ali, help me, instead of saying, oh, Allah, right? If somebody worships a grave, right? That takes you outside the fold of Islam. It's not about labels or names. Read Al-Fatiha, right? Are you Muslim?
No.
No, okay. So have you read the Quran?
I have.
All right. The first chapter in the Quran is called Al-Fatiha, right? I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'm saying Fatiha.
Al-Fatiha, excellent. So in Al-Fatiha, you say, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. It is only Allah do we worship, and only Allah that we ask for help. So if somebody changes that to start saying, Ya Hussein, Ya Ali, Ya Fulan, Ya Nabi, Ya Abdul Qadir, whatever sect they may be from, they are taking themselves outside the fold of Islam, right? So in the end, Islam is only one Islam. What is in the Quran and what the Prophet ﷺ said. Ibn Baz, Ibn Taymiyyah, rahmatullahi alayhim, these are just scholars of Islam, right? If you want to talk about the punishments in Islam, hudud, then there are different types of hudud. If somebody does a sin in the privacy of their home, they're not seen by people, they're not known, then this is between them and God, right? Go ahead. If somebody's doing sins that is going to be corrupting society, whether it's not just homosexuality, if you're talking about fornication, if you're talking about alcoholism or any of that, then they will have their own punishments. And those will go by the time in society. Meaning here in America, for example, we do not have any legal system to be carrying out punishments, right? But in other countries they do, like in Saudi Arabia and other countries. And then you should go to the scholars of that country and ask about the situation and their rulings. Cool? More questions? Go ahead.
So I guess my question is kind of about how you almost sort of like can define like different sins or just wrongdoing. So when someone's gay or homosexual, that's not a choice, that's just how they are. But then like consuming alcohol or eating pork, things like that, that is a choice.
Sure.
So why do you think that?
Good question. Are there people that are genetically predisposed to alcoholism?
Yeah.
There are. So wouldn't you say that for them to get drunk, get in a car, hit somebody would be okay? Because genetically, the entire different races, I don't know if you guys take genetics here, but you can read, that have predisposed towards alcoholism, right? But that doesn't mean it's okay, right? Having that desire is not a sin. But carrying out the action is a sin. You understand what I'm saying? You know?
Well, I don't agree, but I know it.
Well, I mean, yeah, you don't have to agree. I just want to make sure I'm clear, right? Yeah. Meaning, if somebody has a desire towards homosexuality, that desire is not a sin in of itself. Right? But them to carry out the action is against what every religious text, from the Torah, from the New Testament, from the Quran, and other religious texts have forbidden it. You can look up the Bible yourself. Leviticus, Romans, New Testament, Old Testament, it's there. Right? So, carrying out the action. Right? Now, it's not just about homosexuality. Let's say somebody is predisposed to being violent. There are people that have a predisposition. We can, in psychology and genetics, we can even take it down to certain genetics, right? Does that mean that it's okay for them to carry out such action? No. So, more questions?
I just want to say thank you for the lecture. Inshallah, we all benefit from it. This might be, I don't know if this is a big question, but I know people are wondering probably like, how do I become Muslim? You know, so can you touch on that? And is it okay if they like sinned before, you know, they did
Sure.
stuff, they had tattoos or whatever?
Okay, great question. How does somebody become a Muslim? When somebody recognizes their creator, that there is one creator, there's none worthy that should be worshipped other than the one creator, that is the first step. Right? Then, when they accept that that creator sent prophets, all of them, from Adam to Moses to Abraham to Muhammad, Jesus, peace and blessings be upon all of them, as prophets of God, not kids, but prophets, this is the next step, right? When they have this, then they're Muslim. In their heart, they already have the belief. They say the testimony, and that enters them into Islam. Right? Whatever somebody may have done in the past, or whatever evil inclination that you may still have, are not an effect. Right? Meaning, if somebody in the past was somebody horrible and they did drugs and drunks and all that kind of stuff, all of that will be wiped out, turned into good deeds. You will get the reward for leaving that and coming to that which is right. Right? And then even if you have some struggles that you're still going through, doesn't mean you don't become Muslim. You accept Islam, and then all of us struggle, all of us have some evil inclinations that we try to fight our selfishness and try to follow that which God has created and ordained. Right? So that is the acceptance of Islam and what happens to it. All right, more questions? Go for it.
So if to practice Islam, you're supposed to follow the rules like revealed by the prophet of your time. Would that mean following the morals of like Judaism, Christianity is like now considered outdated?
Excellent, you said it perfectly. So if we were in the time of Moses, we would follow Moses. In the time of David, we would follow David. In the time of Jesus, we would follow Jesus. In the time of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon all of them, we follow the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. But we as Muslims, we believe in all those prophets, and we love all of them, and we respect all of them. You will never see a Muslim disrespecting Jesus or drawing paintings or cartoons of Moses or Abraham or any of them. We love them, we believe in them just as much as we believe in the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon all of them. We have such respect for Jesus and Moses and Abraham that even when I say their name, I say alayhi salam, peace be upon them, right? But everybody follows the Prophet of their time. So if we were in the time of Jesus, we would be followers of Jesus. But right now we're in the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon both of them. We follow the Prophet Muhammad. Today, peace and blessings be upon him. Today, if we try to follow an earlier prophet, it would no longer be applicable. Just say you get those updates on your iPhone, right? Can't go backwards with those. Apps won't work. All right, questions? More? Anything? Go ahead, and then we'll come to you after.
Yeah, I'm a student here too, and I think Fox News is part of it, but even part of the misinformation, and I'm about to put this institution on blast. It's also this institution and other institutions of higher learning, because what they're teaching about Islam is false and misleading. I have one professor who's a self-proclaimed Zionist Jew that's teaching an Arab-Israeli relations class. I've heard many strange.
Interesting.
You know, I mean, what you're saying about in marriage, there's a Islamic studies class which is teaching something totally opposite of what you're saying. So, I mean, you know, and I'm not. That's not to say that that's the established opinion in Islam. You know,
sure.
Of course, I understand that, but
sure.
I'm among students that are getting this information. Many strange things I have heard. So now the question is, what can students, as well as Muslims that are not students that have concern, do to get professors in the institutions that are going to actually teach Islam for the people who want to learn it?
Great question. So first off, we do want to thank San Diego State for allowing us to have this conversation so that we do clear up a lot of those things. When we look at Islam or any other religion, people may have their own ideas, but one of the clear ways you can know right from wrong is the evidences, right? You can pick up a Quran. Anybody wants a Quran, we will have them free. Please take a Quran. You can look up the verses of the Quran that talk about Qawm Lut and so on to know what Quran says itself, what the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, and so on. So people can make up their own ideas, but that's their ideas. The evidence is the evidence. They can't change the evidence as much as they would want to. And when we talk about people trying, again, when I went to school, a lot of things were taught to me. I'll say something funny. When I was in middle school, and it's a long time ago, they had a little book. It said, Allah, the Muslim God. You know, it's like as if we have some kind of proprietary God that's different from everybody else. And, you know, and it would have like pictures in there of the prophets and things. And it was horrible. Like as a Muslim, we know that this is not the way of Islam. But they were written by Orientalists. They were written by people that weren't knowledgeable in Islam even, right? But they were given that place due to whatever political reasoning. But we can change things with dialogue. We can change things with conversations. We can change things by reading ourselves. So one of the things every student can do is talk to other students. We have Qur'ans, we have books, we have events. Invite people, share what it is to be truly Muslim in accordance with the Qur'an and what is Sahih upon the authentic narrations of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And you will see that change come. And a time will come that people will no longer be able to put forth incorrect opinions without enough students questioning and challenging them, and that's when they will not be able to put such things out. I think we had, go for it.
So like I know Christianity has its own view about why people sin because of Adam and Eve and Satan. So what's the Islamic view about why we sin?
Great question. In Christianity, you have the concept of original sin, which again, different Christians have different views. I'm not going to speak on behalf of Christianity. But we as Muslims do not have a concept of original sin, meaning whatever Adam did is between him and his creator. Allah forgave him. We are not held responsible because of Adam, peace and blessings be upon him, or Eve, peace and blessings be upon her, their actions. Each one of us has decisions. In Islam, every baby is born pure. Every child is born sinless. And until they get to an age of understanding, right? Until they get to an age where they can understand right from wrong, right? Until they get to puberty in that age, they're not held accountable. There's no sin on them. Right? If a little child, 3-year-old, picks up something and walks out stealing, it's a child, doesn't know. You can't call them sinful, right? But when you get to an age when you know better, right? When you know right from wrong, then you will be held accountable in Islam. People sin because their desires get the best of them, right? And people make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. But Allah is the most forgiving. He doesn't need to kill His son. He doesn't need to sacrifice anybody else. He doesn't need to kill Himself. He just forgives. We ask forgiveness from our Creator and He forgives. If we wrong somebody else, we ask forgiveness from them, right? But this is the concept of sin in a nutshell, inshallah. Go ahead.
So when you were answering his question, you were talking about like evidence.
Okay.
But is a religion not just based off of like belief?
It's not in Islam. That's a great question. In Islam, we don't have this blind faith idea. We have evidences, right? So if I tell you that we pray 5 times a day, it's not just my belief. You can question me. You can say, where's that from? And I can show you from the Quran. I can show you from the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, where that came from. If I tell you that you can't eat pork, it's not just my belief, right? Otherwise, everybody would have their own religion. But Islam is one religion, based on evidences, what we call dalil, proofs, right? Like I teach jurisprudence, fiqh, right? And in it, for every ruling, I say, okay, this is in the Quran, this is where it's mentioned, this verse, this is in the saying of the Prophet, this is why the saying is authentic, right? We check all those evidences, even for authenticity. And when you have evidences, then we make our belief based on that. This is not about blind faith, right? Even if you look at the prophethood of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, it's not based on blind faith on our end, right? If we look at the Quran, a book that till today nobody's been able to meet the challenge of coming up with something like it, right? Imagine today that when we study Arabic grammar, I'm not Arab, right? But I studied Arabic grammar. We go back to the Quran. That is the final authority when we look at balagha and you know, taqdeem wa ta'khir, all these beautiful aspects of language. We go to the Quran from a man that couldn't read or write, that never wrote a poem. Right? The Quran talked about things in the past that the Prophet Muhammad could not have known him, peace and blessings be upon him. Talked about future events, prophecies that came true. It talked about scientific things that would not have been known to him. And there are books here you can get and videos you can watch on that. So those are all evidences. It's not about blind faith. Those are evidences that this is not something that a man just came up with. Right? A man in a desert in Arabia almost 14.5 centuries ago would not have known about the development of the fetus in the womb, would not have known about the orbit of the sun, let alone the earth and so on, things that are in the Quran. So how could he have known that? He would not have known that between Romans and Persians who would win battles and things that are in the future. Right? Not just that. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had physical miracles that were witnessed, right? And I have a video that documents, for example, the splitting of the moon, which people don't realize. And there are evidences not just from Muslims, but from the enemies of the Prophet, peace be upon him, in Arabia, and even evidences from India and other geographical locations that witness this. So these all put together make our faith based on evidences, not a blind faith. Go ahead.
With that, could you explain the relationship between Isa and Allah?
Excellent. Isa, Jesus, the son of Mary, peace and blessings be upon him, is in Islamic belief a great prophet. He was born to a Virgin Mary. We love Mary. We believe she was a virgin. We believe she was given the miraculous birth. We love Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him. We believe he was a prophet of God who got the revelation of God to teach the people, but he worshipped God. He was a prophet and servant, just like every other prophet before him. He was born without a father, that is true, just like just like Adam and Eve were born without father or mother. Right? And other incidents that we can give of miraculous births in the Quran, in Hadith, in the Bible, and so on, does not mean that he is physically the son of God. Right? Some people make a kind of a misunderstanding from linguistics. If you look at the Old Testament, Solomon, David, Ephraim, Adam, other people are called sons of God. But this, as many biblical scholars will explain, was a term of endearment. For example, if somebody goes to a priest and the priest he say, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." Well, it doesn't mean that he's literally your father. You're just showing respect. And he may say, "Come here, son." But he doesn't mean that, him and your mom are friends. But rather it means that, he's just showing a term of endearment. So some people take that literally. In Islam, we do not believe God has any kids. No father, no kid, no brother, no cousin, no stepkids, none of that. God is a creator. He's always been. He always will be. He's above human relationships. Come on. A couple more. Let's do this. Go ahead.
Why we refer to God as He?
Sure. We do not believe God has a gender. We do not say he's a man or woman, this. But we use the terms of language that are appropriate, right? Meaning in the Arabic language, the pronoun that is used for honor is the male pronoun, right? And that has to do with the language. And the jam'a, which is the plural, is many times used by Allah in the Quran as well, due to the majesty of our Creator. So we follow those from this is how the Quran, Allah says, Hu Allah. Hu is damir, is a pronoun for male. But we do not say that Allah is a man or a woman or this or that. Allah is above all of that. Go ahead. Two more. We'll get the brother in the back and then the one up here. Go ahead.
My question is, the person becomes a Muslim. Can he or she just say, "I want to believe in the Quran," and dismissing the Hadith?
Great question. If somebody becomes a Muslim, can they say, "I just want to believe in the Quran and not the Hadith"? They cannot, because that's an oxymoron. I mean, that's something that doesn't work. Because if you believe in the Quran, then the Quran tells you, "Ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul." Yani believe and follow Allah and the Prophet. Right? So today, how would you obey Allah? The Quran, the words of Allah. How would you obey the Prophet? That's a sunnah, that's recorded in hadith. Right? The Quran tells you about what was revealed from Allah, the Quran, the kitab, and al-hikmah. What is the hikmah? That wisdom from the sunnah that the Prophet ﷺ taught. And for 14 and a half centuries, ijma'an, by the consensus of the Muslim ummah, the Quran and Hadith has to be followed, right? All those companions that compiled the Quran, preserved it, they're all the same companions that compiled and preserved the Sunnah as well in the form of Hadith. So anybody that, whether born Muslim or becomes Muslim, if you follow the Quran, you have to follow the Hadith. That's the part of following the Quran. All right, brother in the front.
So we're all pretty much aware of the narrative that Western media pushed onto Muslims and Islam in general, that Islam oppresses women. Can you talk about the rights that women have in Islam that directly said otherwise?
That's a great question, the rights of women in Islam. And that's always a strange question because Islam doesn't really break it up like that, right? We have rights of people, right? I mean, meaning the obligations that a Muslim man has, a woman has. I mean, in general, the rights are all the same, right? If you look at, for example, the right to education, right? Muslim women, we've had great Muslim female scholars in the past and today and so on. Right to worship your Creator freely and so on. Those are all given to everybody. In Islam, we do have gender roles. Everybody has their own roles in life, right? And we respect what Allah has ordained and we follow those. But the Western idea is a very strange idea today, right? Which is that you take away many of the natural roles of a gender, and then you try to make it oppressive being without it. Meaning that, let's say for example, if a mother wants to nurse her child and she wants to take time off today, even though we have maternity leave and all of that, but from a work perspective, many people see it negatively. Like, oh, they won't say it. I know I work in the med device industry, we see it all the time. Oh, she's out. But that's a very core concept of humanity. The bond between a mother and the child is not something that can be put on hold, right? This is something that has to be there. So in Islam, for example, a woman has a right to work. But if she chooses, then her husband has the responsibility to make sure she's financially stable so she can take care of her children if she chooses. If she chooses to work, she has that right, right? In Islam, you have responsibilities, right? Every Muslim man and woman has the same responsibilities. Now, some things are going to be different, right? There are some natural differences between men and women. For example, menses and childbirth and things that men don't have. So those rulings will be specific to a gender because the other gender doesn't have it. But when it comes to prayer and fasting, in general, all of that's going to be the same. Go ahead.
So, can you explain that as applying to Muslim women that choose to or chooses not to wear a hijab?
Sure. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordains the hijab in the Quran, and the Prophet, peace be upon him, ordained it. After that, this is between the person and the Creator, right? Everybody has different rulings that they struggle with, right? For example, all of us should give charity. Above and beyond zakat, we should give sadaqah. We should try to pray in the night. We have some things that are obligatory and some things that are then good to do and so on. Everybody has their struggles. But Allah has ordained what He has ordained in the Quran. No doubt the hijab is in the Quran. But the rest is between the person and the Creator. Somebody could be wearing all of that, but in their heart they don't want to wear it. They're just doing it for show. They're just doing it for somebody else. They get no reward for it. Right? So past that, it's a person between them and their Creator. But no doubt that it is ordained.
Just to add on to both of you guys real quick. So in Islam, we're obligated to, tell our brothers and sisters, if they're doing something wrong, we have to let them know, like you were saying, if they want to wear the hijab, we just got to remind them, however you say it, it's however you say it between you and Allah. But the day of Judgment Day, we're going to be asked, we're going to be questioned, why didn't you just tell Kobe he shouldn't be going out there? You know what I mean? So we're supposed to remind each other.
Kobe Bryant? I'm just kidding.
So that's why I know some people be like, oh, people that are Muslim are so bad on their women. No, it's not that we're bad on our women, It's just same goes for vice versa. Boys, we just got to remind them.
I mean, I think today we see our Muslim sisters practicing more than our brothers. I mean, I think it's the brothers that are in need of reminder more. When I go to a college campus, usually it's very visible when I see my Muslim sisters, not just in the hijab, in the way they conduct themselves, in their prayer, in their activities. And a lot of brothers, unfortunately, get caught up. So to remind each other is something that is beneficial for the believer. But judgment is only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. An Islamic judge, for example, in a court case, that's his job to judge. But for me, I don't know which one of you is the most pious. Right? This is something that Allah knows best. I can only see what's apparent, but Allah knows the hearts. Go ahead.
In Saudi Arabia, women only got the right to drive in 2015. Before that was a ban.
Gotcha.
If the gender equality is there, why the justification for women to have the right to drive until 2015?
Great question. Why is it that women in Saudi Arabia could not drive till 2015? I have no idea, because not being able to drive is not something that we find in Islamic tradition across the globe. Meaning, if you look at the Muslim world, Saudi Arabia is about 30 million people, right? The Muslims are, what I just read today was 1.9 billion, with a B, right? So 30 million is a very small representation amongst 1.9 billion. If you look at majority Muslim countries where have the biggest populations like Indonesia and so on, we don't see an issue with women driving, right? Whatever reasoning they may have had, but the wives of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, they rode horses, they rode camels, they traveled, what would be the equivalent of driving at that time. So we don't see this as a ruling across the board, right? So why they were not able to drive at that time, you can read the works of their legal opinions and so on. But again, you will not find that in any other country from the Muslim countries. Go ahead.
Did you just say the Prophet had wives?
Yes.
Plural?
Yes, yes.
So they practice polygamy?
Yes.
But they don't believe in gay rights?
Okay, so let's take it back a step, right? If we look at, I got you, no problem. Like I said, no question is off the table. Ask away, right? Let's take it back to biblical times, right? If we look at David, if we look at Solomon in the Bible, they had polygamy, right? Christians today may not want to talk about it, but it's in the books, right? They can't undo the books. If you look at many other traditions around the world, not just Islam, you will find polygamy, right? In the sense, for example, if you look at the natural order of reproduction, right? Forget about religion, let's just take it to a very genetic, natural basis, right? If there is a husband and two wives, and would they have children? Would they procreate? Would they move forward? They would, right? There's nothing unnatural biologically about polygamy. Now, you do not force it, it's between, people want to have a relationship like that, whether they're Mormons or others, this is between them, right? Meaning, if there's a guy and two women want to be married to him, that's between them. If they don't, that's between them. There are some guidelines in Islam where you have max and minimums and you have rights and regulations so that it's not abused. But yes, if you have that situation, you have. The Prophet, peace be upon him, he had one wife. Her name was Khadija, right? When he was married to her, he was not married to any other women. Right? After she passed away from this world, then many of his marriages after that were to protect women that were at that time had no other means of protection. Most of them were older than him and so on and so on. And I have a series on the life of the Prophet, peace be upon him. We explain each marriage and the reasoning for it and so on. But polygamy and homosexuality are not in the same category, right? You have one thing that still has a natural basis in humanity, and you have one that doesn't, right? If you look at the survival of a species, we're going to go, even if you take religion out of it, a very core idea of the survival of any species, right? If any species is unable to procreate to a certain extent, in humans they say 2.3 per two people, that species will decline and cease to exist, right? So, in that sense, if, for example, the majority of people became homosexual today, right, how would you sustain humanity? Go ahead.
I don't think it's necessary because we're overpopulated.
Okay, excellent. But think it through, right? Think it through. We're overpopulated today, right? Let's say we start to dwindle as humanity, right? Now, what happens is the elder generations will outweigh the younger, who are workers, who are able to do, right? You cannot sustain society. And we're finding this problem in Europe right now. That's why they're welcoming a lot of immigrants, because immigrants are doing all the hard work, right? So when you have a society where you don't, and you can ask your professor, if you don't have 2.3, I don't know how you get the 0.3, but statistics, right? Per couple, that species cannot survive. If we start dwindling in numbers as a species, we may start to look at a model that we're like, oh, we're getting less population, that's good. But we can't sustain that because the older population that's unable to work will not be able to be sustained by the younger. And as we go generation by generation, when the population does become less and less, in the end, we will become extinct as a species. That's genetics. Go ahead.
I get what you're saying, but I don't think that's completely fair because you have a lot of people that give their kids up for adoption, a lot of people that don't want their children, and they have children they don't want them. And you have these couples that can't biologically have children that adopt them and give them a good home.
Sure, but think through that, right? How many people are there that, for example, in the world today, that give up their children, percentage-wise, right? It's minute, percentage-wise, right? How many people are unable to have children biologically? By percentage-wise, it's again going to be minute. But if you have a society where it's not an issue of somebody being born sterile or not able to have children, if you have a society where people make decisions where they start to go towards a lifestyle that it will not sustain humanity. I know people don't want to talk about this because we have been politically corrected to a point that we can't discuss things. But these are realities, right? These are things that we look in nature. The natural, not going to get graphic here, right? But the method of use even between men and women and other than that, it's not the same, right? There's an exit, an entrance, and all that kind of thing that you need to think through, right? People don't want to talk about it because they don't have that ability to have that conversation. But we should be able to, as a society. We don't have to agree on it. You can have your view, I can have my view. But we need to have that conversation, right?
I just think, like, obviously we disagree on the topic, which is
Sure.
fine, but I don't understand how it's, like, moral to love and be with all these different people when, like, cheating is seen as bad because you're with different people.
Good point.
But then...
So let's talk about that. So let's talk about that, right? Let's say there is a man and he loves a woman, and let's say there's another woman and both of them agree that openly, no secrets, no lying, no cheating, they want to be married to this man, right? If both women agree and they're happy about it, right? How is that lying or cheating, right? In Islam, this is the difference. In America, we have hypocrisy, right? What we have people that tell, I never want to be with anybody else, but then they're at a massage parlor doing things that they shouldn't be. Then they're out there getting caught in hotel rooms with people that they shouldn't be. We have prostitution like you wouldn't believe. We have strip clubs. We have all kinds of things that we hide. We don't want to talk about because we do it secretly. We do it lyingly, right? And that's wrong. In Islam, that's wrong. Look, if you and your wife, Adam and Eve, one husband, one wife. That's the natural state. That's what the Quran tells you, that look, this is the best, right? You're happy, she's happy, great, right? But let me ask you a question now, right? In Iraq, for example, recently, right? Now, I'm not talking about history of a long time ago, right? We had wars, we had bombings, we as a country, the United States, we invaded a country, economy collapsed, no law enforcement. Many women, their husbands were killed. Mostly those that were killed, military or so on, or executions by death squads and so on, were men, right? There were women now in Iraq that could not get a job. There were no jobs. They could not safely go out and work, right? In that situation, if a woman and a husband say, you know what, there's a woman, she's in need, I'm perfectly comfortable if you take her as a second wife and we all live happily together, openly, honestly, what's immoral about that? Right? What would you suggest as an alternative? For her to turn to prostitution, sell her kids? Like, you see what I'm saying? There are situations. If you are not in that situation, great. You don't have to go down to the line of polygamy. You are happy, your husband's happy, your wife's happy, great. Live a happy life. And that's the majority of Muslims. If you look at 99.9% of Muslims, it's just one wife, one husband. But there are situations, there are situations where sometimes a wife is not able to have children, and she tells her husband, I want to be with you, but I want children. Marry a woman so we can have children, we can live together. If they're all happy with that, and that is something that is in the natural course of how humanity does continue, why would we have a problem with it? Go ahead.
I just really strongly disagree.
Okay.
With everything.
Great.
I get it from a biological standpoint.
Good. At least we agree from a biological perspective, right?
I just don't understand why it's an awful thing for people to love who they love, because they don't have a choice about it.
So let me ask you this. Let's say somebody is attracted to a dog.
Okay, but bestiality.
Why?
Is not the same.
Why not?
Because it's an animal.
But if somebody is naturally attracted to an animal, why is that wrong? How come you consider that to be wrong, right? Then your morality is just your own scale, right? Meaning that if somebody's naturally attracted to a dog, they're born that way, why would that be different?
Because there's a difference between being attracted to an animal and comparing being attracted to this.
What's the difference?
That they're people.
Sure. Again, so there's a difference between attracted to being a man and a man being attracted to a man and a man being attracted to a woman, right? There's a difference.
There's a difference between being attracted to the same sex and being attracted to an animal.
Sure. Why not? But the people. I understand they're people, right? But then if you go down that path, then there is a difference between a man being attracted to a woman and a man being attracted to a man. They're the same gender. But if you say that difference doesn't matter, then where do you draw the line? Why is it not okay to be attracted to a dog if they're naturally inclined towards it? See, this is where morality changes, right? Everybody draws their own line. We draw the line where our Creator draw the line. In the Bible, in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, in the Quran, this is the line that's drawn by the Creator. Naturally, biologically, it's a line that's been drawn. Again, we respect everybody's right to have their own opinions. Go ahead.
I think also, like, it comes down to like the cultural and religious perspective. For example, like on the topic of homosexuality, you know, Uganda, the president isn't Muslim, but he personally, like, his stance was that no, like, as an African nation, we're not going to put that practices into place, you know, and so you can't really say like Islam itself is the only one that's like.
No, I mean, first thing, culture is a different issue, but if you look at any religion, if you look in the Bible, very clearly condemns it, right? If you read the Bible, if you haven't, Leviticus in the Old Testament, Romans in the New Testament, even has a very strict punishment in the Bible for it. Go ahead.
I never said it was just Islamic people or Muslim people. I'm just talking about in general.
Sure.
I don't.
No, I was just clarifying from her point.
No, I know, but she said like it's not just. I know, like why
Right.
it's just that, so I just want to clarify.
Sure, you're right. I mean, every major religious text condemns homosexuality, right? But again, that's those texts and the people of that religion. You can look it up yourself. You know, when you can look up the Old Testament, you can look up the New Testament. You can look up writings of any of the traditional commentators from the rabbis or priests and so on. Even till today, most Christian churches do not allow homosexuality, right? But some are changing because they feel they need to, you know, please the people of the time or so on. But they can't change the text. The texts are the text, right? Now, if you want to take it to a biological perspective, if you want to take religion out of it, I think we've already agreed that there is an issue. If somebody feels that this is their opinion, that they think this is fine, they have the right. It's a free country, right? Go ahead.
I don't agree that it's an issue. Like, I
What do you mean?
agree that like biologically only men and women can make children together.
To procreate the human race.
That's what I agree with.
Okay, good. We agree.
It's an issue.
So do you think biologically men were supposed to procreate together as a race, or women and women? I mean, that's the core function of two.
Not because they
Okay.
have two different, like. You have
Okay, so that's an issue, right?
sperm cell and an egg cell.
Exactly. And who has a sperm cell? Men. And who has an egg cell? Women. And that's how nature designed for the human race to continue, right? I mean, we can agree to that part, right? Right?
I just like.
But she agrees.
I understand that's how you need to make children.
Right? No, but I mean, it's not just about having children. Go ahead.
I don't agree that having gay couples who don't have a choice to love who they love
Gotcha.
are like somehow gonna make the whole population die and the whole species die.
Okay. So
That's a little ridiculous.
sure. So now let's think it through, though, right? To say that one gay couple or two or three, that's a different issue. But we're talking about a species, right? So we have agreed now that the way a species survives is through a male and female, right? Sperm, egg, that is correct, right? So if something is acceptable and natural, then it should be able to be scalable, right? Meaning if the majority of humanity went down that path, would that be an issue for the survival of the human race? Biologically. Yes. No? Maybe? You don't want to think about that scenario?
I'm getting really mad and I don't want to be
Why?
disrespectful because I really disagree with
Sure. So as
I really like I don't want
I understand.
Like,
But
be
as
disrespectful to
I appreciate that. But look, if I disagree with your view, I can't get upset. I have to, this is the society we live in. I have to respect the fact that you have a view, right? And if I have a view, you have to respect the fact that I have a view. And we as Americans can disagree, right? That is the whole point of the country we live in. Many people are very adamant about abortion or pro-life or abortion rights, but we have to, as a society, be able to respectfully discuss and respect the fact that somebody may have a different view. If we start getting angry and upset and things, then that closed-mindedness, that hatred would develop, right? That's the whole point of such conversations, is to understand. And this is not something just my view. Many views that people have around you, you may not agree with. You have that right. Any other question? Not about. Go ahead. It is not. It's a choice. I mean, if somebody wants to be celibate, but that is not the natural way in Islam either, right? Meaning that even if you're a scholar, even if you are, what you would be equivalent to a priest and so on, we get married, we have children. Most of the scholars that I know in San Diego are all married, have children and so on, because in Islam we believe that's the natural method. The way that we see in the Catholic Church, for example, where we have the nuns and priests and so on, we don't believe that's the natural lifestyle either. And that's why we see many ills come into society from that kind of a celibacy as well. Not going to go into details there, which you can Google it. Yeah. Questions?
So we have to wrap up at 9. So if you have any last questions, please feel free to ask.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's not a question, but I just kind of want to just give a little perspective on that whole matter. First and foremost, I think you understand that everybody's just not going to believe the same thing.
Sure.
Everybody's not going to be Muslim, everybody's not going to believe the Quran, everybody's not going to believe the Bible. But one of the functions of revelation is to lay down a guide, a principle of morals in any culture, in any society that you live in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I got this analogy one time from somebody that went to, they said they interviewed somebody in like Papua New Guinea, a tribe that practiced cannibalism. And they interviewed the person, and one of the last person that participated in cannibalism. And they said, didn't you know that it wasn't right to eat another person's body after you killed him? And he said, the person said, how would I know that? This is all I ever knew. This is what I've seen. I mean, everybody was doing it.
Sure.
So when revelation comes down, like right now we live in a society where love means something different, relationships mean something different than it might have been at one point in time. So if that society had received a revelation, then they would have had a guideline to say, hey, this clearly says don't eat people.
Yeah.
Well, we don't eat people. All right, so in the matter,
I'm glad we don't.
The book says don't do it, so we don't do it. That's our guideline for morality. If a person disagrees with that, that's fine, so you disagree with that. But
sure.
Where it's coming from, this is why the Muslims say that we don't do that. That's our guideline for morality. This is what we live by. Now, if you live in a time where everybody says relationships look like something different, 100 years from now, it might be something different.
Sure.
But our going to remain the same.
As a society today, we have many things that we are, as a society, are debating and arguing. What is the role of transgender men and women amongst other men and women? Should transgender men who identify as women play sports with women, and so on and so on? These are things that society is debating and discussing, and we have to have a respectful discussion on it. But as Muslims, we have a divine guideline, and that's what we follow. Go ahead.
I kind of feel like the conversation was wanting to hear it was acceptable.
Yeah, I think that is usually what I get nowadays.
But as Muslims, we know, just like you're saying, that is the guideline. We go by the word of Allah. We can love a gay person, but you're not jumping into, the same environment or atmosphere or fire.
I got you. Go ahead.
By loving them, you can respect them like we respect everyone else. But
Sure.
it doesn't mean that you're going to find that we approve of it. That is
And again, I mean, just to be clear, you can be.
Because my sister did.
But I understand, but you don't see how, you don't see that that's right. Like you see
No.
it wrong.
So again,
You're wrong about that.
so let's keep this together, right? Let's say somebody has some. Let's say. Let me give you another example. All right? Take it easy. Take it easy, right? Let's say you have a 40-year-old friend who's in love with a 16-year-old friend, right? For example, right? Would you approve of that, right? That's between that could be what they're attracted to. You can disagree with them, but that doesn't mean that you have to agree with what they agree with, right? Or they have to agree with what you have to agree with. Everybody has their own idea of morals, but we as Muslims have a divine text. This is what we follow. So, go ahead. Go ahead.
So my point is, I'm not a Muslim. I believe in homosexuality, but my point to you would be, if we cannot hold these conversations and not get frustrated, what separates us from being the same as those MAGA supporters who fight out in a way and can't hear out the opinions of other people? People of Islam, they believe in sex as a form of procreation, and that is their belief.
Right.
I believe in homosexuality, and I'm fine, and I agree with him, and I follow you, and I'm totally fine listening to everything you have to say. I have friends that are Muslim, but I'm not going to fight with him on his beliefs.
We can discuss it.
Those are his beliefs.
I do understand, like, he has his own beliefs because he believes that, like, his creator has this way of, like he wrote out the way to do things.
Good.
That's what you believe. What I don't understand is if you don't believe in that, then how can you fully love someone if you can't accept how they are?
So again, this is where my question comes to you. If there is somebody who does some action that you don't agree with, does that mean that you can't love them as a human being? So, go ahead. Sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I feel like when you're in college, you interact with so many different types of people that have different beliefs and stuff. And so, like you mentioned, like you have to be able to have conversations and be able to see both sides respectfully without getting upset because it's just a conversation.
Yeah.
Like you can leave it in the room. And I think too, when you're coming into a new space and you're getting new information, you have to be open to hearing some things that you may not agree with.
That's the whole point of conversations, right? Again, I meet people that hold views that I very strongly am against, right? But I have to be patient enough and have to be comfortable enough to be able to talk it out, right? And as a country, that's what we're going through, right? People that are Christian, people that are Jewish, people that are Mormons, people that are Muslim, people that are Hindus, people that are atheists, all have different views. And this is why we're here to present one set of views. Accept is your choice or rejects your choice. Free country. Till now. All right. Any other questions? To wrap it up?
Can I make a statement?
Go for it.
Our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, during his time, he ran across a lot of different people who had many different beliefs. We followed that example of conduct and character that he displayed to them. You know, and he never, you know, ordered anyone to do anything bad to these people. It was to them their way and to us our way. You know, so we try to follow that and make sure that we treat a human being as a human being. We're not allowed to hate the human being. We might not like actions, but we're not allowed to hate the human being. So if I don't hate you, I love you.
Oh, that was so nice.
It was a really good way to help me like understand then, because I was just kind of confused. Because like, to me, like in this society, like the way you identify is kind of like how you are sometimes. Like that's how people perceive you.
Sure.
So a lot of people like, I was just kind of confused by her comment. I didn't fully understand. But he said it like really made a lot of sense.
Excellent. I'm glad you were able to work it out with his loving comment. So, thank you so much. We really appreciate everybody coming out.
آمنت أن الآخرة لا بد يوما آتية كل الخلائق حاضرة كل السرائر بادية آمنت أن الآخرة لا بد يوما آتية كل الخلائق حاضرة كل السرائر بادية